Knowledge about dinosaurs and ancient life is built on extremely limited material. The vast majority of organisms that ever existed on Earth left no traces behind, and what has been preserved is often represented by fragments whose interpretation constantly changes. Paleontology doesn't work with a complete picture of the past, but with its fragments. Because of this, a wide spectrum of claims arises around Earth's ancient history, from strictly confirmed conclusions to hypotheses, based on indirect data and ideas that exist exclusively at the level of assumptions. This video compiles various topics related to dinosaurs, evolution, and the ancient biosphere. They progress in increasing complexity and degree of speculation, from basic concepts and well-confirmed facts to rare finds, controversial interpretations, and ideas that go beyond scientific consensus. Welcome to the Paleontology Iceberg. Level 1: Reptilian dinosaurs. Dinosaurs represented a broad and diverse array of reptiles that appeared in the Mesozoic era, which lasted approximately from 202 to 66 million years ago. In paleontology, dinosaurs refer to a special group of reptiles including many species that differed in structure and lifestyle. They belong to the clade Archosauria, which also includes modern crocodiles and birds. That is, all these animals are united by common evolutionary origins. Dinosaurs are traditionally divided into two major groups: Sauriskia, literally meaning lizard-hipped, and Ornithischia, meaning bird-hipped. This brief introduction covers the most basic concepts about dinosaurs, since the overwhelming majority of them were indeed reptiles. But the discovery of feathered dinosaurs significantly changed our understanding of these ancient creatures. If previously dinosaurs were usually depicted as massive, scale-covered reptiles, it's now recognized that many species actually had feathers, sometimes resembling the plumage of modern birds, and sometimes just simple thread-like structures. It's believed that feathers appeared in dinosaurs for various reasons. They could serve as thermal insulation, play a role in display behavior, and possibly provide limited gliding flight capability. Many feathered dinosaurs belong to the Theropoda group, which includes such well-known species as Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex. The first finds of feathered dinosaurs were made in the 1990s in China's Liaoning province. The fossils discovered there date to the early Cretaceous period and include species like Sinosauropteryx and Protarchaeopteryx. Some of these animals possessed features close to avian ones, for example, a wishbone and feathered forelimbs that could provide brief flight. The discovery of Archaeopteryx, a feathered dinosaur with pronounced bird-like features, became an important link between dinosaurs and modern birds. At the same time, dinosaur feathers weren't limited to just flight feathers. They existed in different forms, from the simplest filaments to more complex branch structures. The presence of feathers in some species allowed researchers to hypothesize that flight may have arisen through gradual evolutionary transformations in small feather-covered dinosaurs. Although far from all feathered dinosaurs were capable of flight, this adaptation likely played a role in the further development of flight in certain lineages. The Loch Ness Monster was a plesiosaur. The Loch Ness Monster, more often called Nessie, is a legendary creature and cryptid that, according to stories, inhabits the waters of Loch Ness in Scotland and has been stirring people's imagination for many decades. One widespread theory suggests that Nessie is a surviving plesiosaur, a representative of the group of marine reptiles that coexisted with dinosaurs, but went extinct about 66 million years ago. However, upon closer examination, this idea faces serious scientific problems. Loch Ness is a freshwater lake whose conditions radically differ from the marine environments where plesiosaurs lived. Moreover, plesiosaurs were adapted specifically to seawater, so they couldn't survive in the lake's fresh water. Their disappearance coincides with the end of the Cretaceous period, making the hypothetical survival of one species extremely unlikely. It's also hard to imagine the possibility of a viable population of large air-breathing reptiles existing in a relatively closed freshwater body where they would have to adapt to new conditions and find sufficient food. Despite numerous studies and search operations, no convincing evidence of a plesiosaur-like creature or any large unknown animal has been found in Loch Ness. Giant long-necked dinosaurs, long-necked sauropods, such as Brachiosaurus, became symbols of the giant herbivorous dinosaurs of the Jurassic period. Brachiosaurus reached more than 20 meters in length and could raise its head to a height of up to 12 meters, allowing it to feed on foliage in the upper tree canopy. Unlike many other sauropods, Brachiosaurus's front limbs were longer than its hind ones. It's precisely because of this that it received its name, meaning arm lizard. This body structure made its posture more vertical and allowed it to effectively use its long neck. Brachiosaurus's neck consisted of vertebrae with cavities and internal supports, similar to the structure of bird bones. This lightened the construction and allowed it to maintain enormous length without destructive loading. It was previously assumed that such animals were forced to live in water to compensate for body weight. However, modern data shows that their skeleton was sufficiently light and strong for full terrestrial life. Brachiosaurus and its relatives, including Argentinosaurus, were the heaviest land animals in Earth's history. To support body masses of tens of tons, they had to consume enormous amounts of plant food daily. Inaccuracies in Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, a magnificent film directed by Steven Spielberg, remains a stunning spectacle, regardless of whether viewers are interested in dinosaurs or not. However, it contains quite a few scientific inaccuracies, both in the novel and in the film. At the center of the plot lies the idea of extracting dinosaur DNA from ancient mosquitoes preserved in amber. While this concept works perfectly in artistic narrative, in practiced DNA degrades over much shorter timescales, making such a cloning method practically impossible. Additionally, many dinosaurs in the film are shown without feathers, especially velociraptors, which corresponded to the level of scientific knowledge at the time the film was made. Now, however, much evidence has accumulated that some theropods were probably indeed feathered. The depiction of their behavior is also largely based on assumptions. For example, the intelligence and pack hunting of velociraptors in the film are greatly exaggerated. In the film, species coexist in one space that in reality lived in different geological epochs and in different territories. Thus, velociraptors and Tyrannosaurus couldn't have met in nature. Another example of artistic license is Dilophosaurus. In reality, it was much larger and, of course, didn't possess the ability to spit venom or unfold a frill. The depiction of genetic engineering is also greatly simplified. In the film, it's presented as a relatively fast, controlled process, whereas in real science, such interventions are incredibly complex and require enormous time and resources. Finally, the famous claim that Tyrannosaurus only sees moving objects has no scientific basis. On the contrary, according to modern data, T-Rex's vision was excellent. Mokelmembe, a mythical creature or cryptid, about which it's said that it inhabits the waters of the Congo River Basin in Central Africa, mainly in the territory of the Republic of Congo and Democratic Republic of Congo. The name comes from the Lingala language. Mokel means one who stops the flow of rivers, and Mbembe means water spirit or living being. Descriptions of Mokelmembe vary, but it's usually represented as a large semi-aquatic animal with a long neck, externally resembling a sauropod or a creature similar to the Loch Ness Monster. According to stories, it has smooth gray-brown or reddish-brown skin, and a neck so long it's often compared to a giraffe's neck. Some stories say Mokelmembe feeds on vegetation and stays in deep river channels, hidden lakes, and inaccessible swamps. The legend of Mokelmembe has existed for many years among local inhabitants and attracts the attention of cryptozoologists and researchers of unknown animals. However, no scientific confirmation of this creature's existence has been found. Expeditions organized to search for it have yielded no convincing results. The fake Brontosaurus, the term fake Brontosaurus, refers to a historical question of erroneous classification and subsequent renaming of one of the well-known dinosaur species. Brontosaurus, familiar to the general public, was at the center of scientific disputes and confusion for decades. In 1879, paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh described a new dinosaur species and named it Apatosaurus. 2 years later, in 1881, he described another specimen and gave it the name Brontosaurus. However, in 1903, paleontologist Elmer Riggs concluded that these two species actually represent the same genus and that the correct name should be Apatosaurus, since according to the rules of scientific nomenclature, the earlier name has priority. Thus, Brontosaurus practically disappeared from scientific use for almost the entire 20th century. However, in 2015, a major taxonomic work was published under the leadership of paleontologist Emanuel Chop. The researchers showed that the differences between specimens previously assigned to Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were significant enough to consider them two separate species. As a result, the name Brontosaurus was officially restored as valid. Tiktaalik, one of the key fossils discovered in the Canadian Arctic in 2004. Tiktaalik became an outstanding testimony to the evolutionary transition from fish to tetrapods in the late Devonian, approximately 375 million years ago. This animal combined features of both fish and early terrestrial vertebrates, occupying an important intermediate position between them. On the fish side, Tiktaalik had scales, fins, and gills, which unambiguously indicated its aquatic lifestyle. However, it's precisely the combination of these features with elements characteristic of terrestrial animals that makes its discovery especially significant. Tiktaalik had a neck, a rarity among fish, since in most of them the head is rigidly connected to the torso. Its fins possessed a structure resembling rudimentary limbs. Inside them were bones analogous to the humerus, radius, and ulna, as well as primitive wrist elements. The front fins were strong enough to partially support body weight, indicating the animal's ability to rise in shallow water or lean on the bottom. The name Tiktaalik comes from the Inuit language and means large freshwater fish. The discovery of this species filled an important gap in the fossil record, clearly demonstrating what anatomical transformations occurred during vertebrates' transition from aquatic environment to land. The fake Triceratops, according to some paleontological studies, the famous Triceratops might not have been an independent species at all, but rather represented a juvenile form of the rarer dinosaur Torosaurus. This idea has been pursued by researchers John Scannella and Jack Horner from the Museum of the Rockies in Montana. They suggest that Triceratops, familiar to the general public by its characteristic three horns and large bony frill, is actually an earlier developmental stage of Torosaurus. Although both supposed species indeed have similar appearances, Torosaurus is distinguished by a number of features. Its frill is thinner and smoother, and also contains two large openings openings. Having studied 29 Triceratops skulls, scientists discovered that in those places where Torosaurus has openings, the bone in young individuals noticeably thins, as if preparing for further formation of such openings. Analysis of annual bone rings showed that all studied skulls belong to relatively young individuals, which additionally supports the hypothesis that adult Triceratops weren't found because they are Torosaurus. It was also noted that the structure of the frill and horns in these animals was quite porous and remained flexible until reaching maturity, so their shape could change significantly during growth. It was previously thought that the massive frill served as protection. However, it's now assumed that it could perform more of a signaling function related to age or social status. Chicxulub asteroid, about 66 million years ago, a catastrophic event occurred on Earth that ended the age of dinosaurs. An asteroid approximately 10-15 km in diameter collided with the territory of the modern Yucatan Peninsula, forming the Chicxulub crater with a diameter of about 150 kilometers. The impact energy was colossal. Within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, all life was instantly destroyed. The impact caused powerful earthquakes, global fires, and giant tsunamis that crashed into coastal areas. An enormous amount of dust, soot, and aerosols was ejected into the atmosphere. These particles blocked access to sunlight for weeks or even months, plunging the planet into cold darkness. Temperatures dropped sharply, photosynthesis practically stopped, and food chains began collapsing worldwide. It's estimated that as a result of these processes, about 75% of all living species became extinct. The asteroid impact hypothesis was proposed in 1980 after the discovery of an iridium-enriched layer in rocks from that time. Today it's considered generally accepted and is confirmed by both the presence of the crater and global geological traces of the catastrophe. However, it later became clear that this wasn't the only event that influenced the extinction. Level 2 humans and dinosaurs lived together. This myth claims that humans and dinosaurs existed simultaneously, but this doesn't correspond to reality. Dinosaurs went extinct about 66 million years ago, while representatives of the genus Homo, to which modern humans belong, appeared much later, approximately 2 to 3 million years ago, and we're talking only about the earliest forms. If we consider mammoths and other large animals of the Ice Age as dinosaurs, then yes, we could conditionally say that humans lived together with dinosaurs. But this is, of course, incorrect. Mammoths and other representatives of megafauna are not related to dinosaurs. Megalodon lives alongside humans. The claim that Megalodon exists to this day and coexists with humans doesn't correspond to scientific data. Megalodon went extinct approximately 23 to 326 million years ago in the Cenozoic era. All fossil finds and research results indicate that this giant predator disappeared long before the appearance of modern humans. There are various theories and conspiratorial assumptions that Megalodon supposedly hides in the ocean depths, for example, in the Mariana Trench, or inhabits great depths rarely visited by research equipment. However, there's no evidence for this. Moreover, Megalodon was such a large animal that to maintain its vital functions, it would require enormous amounts of food. Such activity wouldn't go unnoticed. The disappearance of large marine animals, mass ecosystem disruptions, or traces of attacks would necessarily be recorded. Nothing like this is observed. Chinese dragon bones residents of one Chinese village stumbled upon a skeleton they considered to be dragon remains, which caused heated discussion and debates about the possible existence of such mythical creatures. The discovered skeleton, stretching more than 18 meters, had unusually small front limbs and a skull resembling a cow's in shape. It was found in a field near the city of Zhangjiakou in Hebei province. Unlike Western depictions of dragons, Chinese dragons are traditionally considered wingless and move through the sky by floating in the air like snakes. Therefore, the appearance of the found skeleton seemed convincing to some local residents. In video recordings made by eyewitnesses, a crowd of villagers can be seen surrounding the remains. Some expressed the assumption that their find might be a real mythical creature. Nevertheless, users of Chinese social networks were skeptical about the footage and suggested that the skeleton might be a fake, possibly created for filming a movie or other staged purposes. Dinosaurs are alive in a certain sense. The statement, "dinosaurs are alive," indeed has a foundation. Modern birds are direct descendants of predatory dinosaurs such as Tyrannosaurus or Velociraptor, and represent a continuation of their evolutionary line. That is, dinosaurs really do exist today, but not at all in the form we usually imagine them. These aren't giant predators, but the most ordinary birds, right down to the familiar chicken. Dinosaurs don't exist and never existed, a conspiratorial idea according to which dinosaurs supposedly never existed. From a scientific point of view, such claims naturally don't withstand criticism. There's an enormous amount of fossil, anatomical, and geological evidence confirming their existence. Evolutionary processes also unambiguously indicate that dinosaurs really were part of Earth's history. Nevertheless, this theory has supporters, and a significant part of such views is motivated by religious beliefs. For example, among some Christian groups, there's an opinion that dinosaurs don't fit into the biblical narrative, which doesn't describe evolution, and therefore, they believe dinosaurs are fiction. According to statistics, about 215,000 people hold such views.